Ukraine-Russia conflict. And I'll spend a little bit more time on this to just bring out how this has impacted on our economy. This conflict has been going on since February this year. The two countries have been the source of raw materials as well as market for some of our products. The conflict itself, together with sanctions that have been imposed, particularly on Russia, have undermined the market as well as the source of raw materials such as fertilizer and wheat products. The conflict has equally affected agricultural production in other countries such as Indonesia and Malaysia, which traditionally have been our source of raw materials for edible oil. That Indonesia stopped exportation of edible oil to any other country until recently when they allowed now exportation. But there before, on account of the conflict in Ukraine and Russia, they stopped exportation, now being used for domestic requirements only. Of course, that affected the global supply market of edible oil and also the prices of edible oil. They can therefore imagine, since we are largely an import nation, that most of our consumer products come from outside, including materials. One of the materials that we import from outside is edible oil. So now, Malaysia is exporting. Indonesia is not exporting. Russia, which is the largest producer, is not producing because of the conflict. And therefore, the principle of supply and demand comes in automatically. So when we bring edible oil into the country here, certainly the prices must go up, which must be reflected at the retail price, when at the paying counter when you're buying from the supermarket. The other reason is the value of the shilling against the dollar. As a country, we rely heavily on imports, hence any fluctuation on the value of the dollar against the shilling is felt on all commodities. Further, crude oil is also bought using the dollar. Any rise on the cost of a barrel of crude oil impacts the country immediately. In the last couple of weeks, the prices of crude oil have been rising and affecting the cost of production and transport in the country. Now, prices of crude oil, like I said, has been rising steadily, hence impacting on pump prices. To stabilize fuel prices in order to arrest the cost of producing goods and travel in the country, the government has deployed a stabilization program in order to cushion our people against volatility in fuel prices. To achieve this, the government has paid 45.93 billion shillings under the fuel subsidy program. A further 20.85 billion was paid mid last month, thereby making the pump prices in the country the lowest in the region. And I'm saying this because many a time we hear, either in the social media space, our people complaining that how can our pump prices be slightly higher than neighboring countries, yet they pass through here. I can tell you today that in this region, the country with the lowest pump prices is this country, and largely because of the subsidy that the government has been able to deploy to cushion our people. We can still, come up with other interventions that would make it easy for us, even when there are disruptions out there, we can continue to be able, to produce our own. One of the interventions that is being considered is to ensure that we are self-sufficient in palm oil production by increasing palm trees production in western and coastal regions. You saw the deficit that we have in the country. We are only producing about 38,000 or thereabout, with a deficit of about 804,000. So large areas that can be able to grow this crop, we are encouraging our people to engage in palm oil production so that we can have sufficient local materials to be able to produce edible oils. The government is also promoting establishment of local oil processing plants. If we have our own, we're not able to rely largely on what is coming from outside. local production is always the best. When there are disruptions out there, you can continue doing your own things in a country. But when you rely on, commodities and materials from outside, anytime there is slight disruption, certainly the supply chains are affected and the costs are equally going to be very high. We also, as a government, asking for local production of other oil crops such as sunflower and simsim. Many areas in this country can grow sunflower. And the market is already there. It is obvious that we have got market for sunflower and for simsim. So our farmers, you can grow maize, but also diversify into sunflower or simsim, because like I said, the market is already existing.